Dune Prophecy, episode 3. Now, I have been, I think, fairly critical of the show. I don't think I've been overly critical, but I've had concerns and I voiced them. In some areas, this episode has alleviated some of my concerns. Okay. In other areas, it was infuriating.
I think I'm in a similar place. Like, I'm still very unsure about this show. There was parts of this episode that I enjoyed a lot more, and I think did a good job, but I still think there's too much. The main story is too, like, only drip feeding us bits, and something I think that might end up being the case is I'm optimistic still. I like to always try and be optimistic.
Yeah, we do try and be positive about shows, because if we both hate it, we'll just stop watching it. That's the thing.
Because I think it has potential, and I wonder if this might end up being one of those shows where it's like, we get into season 2 comes out, and season 2 is juicy, and season 2 is great, and it's one of those shows where, like, you tell people,
get through the first season.
Season 1's a bit slow, but it gets a lot better. Trust me.
The Breaking Bad. You've just got to get through season 1, and then it really kicks in.
I obviously don't. I want it to get juicy this season, but, like, I worry that maybe that's the situation we end up in, which is not the end of the world, but at the moment it's still feels very slow with the main story.
What I will say is I found what was happening in the episode a lot easier to follow this week, which I've struggled with than previous weeks, because they weren't just endlessly waffling. My big problem this week, and with the show overall, I feel like I know none of the characters' names.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I know that the head of the Bene Gesserit is a Harkonnen. I couldn't tell you her first name. And the issue I had with this week's episode, specifically, the time jumps there was no stylistic way to tell you were in a different period of time. You just had to remember the faces of the same person at different ages.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no kind of on-screen text. And I know that people are, oh no, the on-screen text kind of breaks it a bit. Cool. There are story ways of going, like with the current one, we're going, oh, I remember, and then you get a flashback or something like that. You can change even, like, like you see the joke on Twitter all the time, like a street, and then they just put different, like, filters on it. It's like where the street is, and like sepia means it's Mexico and stuff. You can do stuff with the footage to let us know that this is happening in the past that would have made it easier. But a lot of the stuff takes place in the same places and jumps around a lot. And I'm just like, right, I'm very good at locking in and watching a TV show. One of the best to ever do it. But I just found the time jumps in this episode were poorly done.
I get what you mean. So I
watched Arrow for 6 seasons.
The stuff I enjoyed the most in the episode was the flashback stuff. And the story there.
Oh, the story was so compelling.
But I get what you mean. Like, thankfully, because, like, we'd had one flashback earlier of the main Harkonnen lady.
Yes.
For the Bene Gesserit.
So that was in episode
1?
2, maybe episode 1, where we saw her use the voice for the first time to get the other lady to kill herself. So that clearly happens around, this episode happens around that moment.
Yes. So that I recognized the actress and I was like, oh, okay, we're in a time jump. And I also, from what we'd seen of her having, like, the nightmare memory of her running through snow.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, we're in her flashback. I picked up fairly quickly on it, but I get what you mean. It wasn't very well shown unless you're, like, paying enough attention to that stuff.
If someone who just wants to casually watch TV is watching that, there is a real chance they go, wait, who's this woman? Not realizing it's the same person.
I think the jump to the sister's story flashback I think at that point I'd kind of gone, oh, younger actress, like younger, it's got to be a flashback again. But again, like, yeah, names I can't have no fucking clue. But the story of the flashback stuff, I really enjoyed. Like you say, it was really compelling. This is the shit that I've been wanting. Like, it's more focused on the family names and what the fuck happened and these political like fights back and forth. Like, we now understand a bit more of Atreides was on top, sold out the Harkonnen as being like this betrayer or something, and
Yeah,
got them
we don't
knocked down.
quite know what happened there, but the Atreides threw the Harkonnens under the bus for something.
Yeah, maybe falsely accused them for something. They got knocked down a peg to end up on this fucking frozen planet as just like poor people living off woolly whales, which is a weird creature idea.
It felt kind of like oh, what are the hyper whales from Star Wars?
Oh, I know what you mean.
It kind of felt like a funny way of like the Miller family. No, the Herbert family, sorry, kind of going, yeah, you took our concept, we killed your favourite animals.
Yeah, I get
I'm
that.
not
I
saying
think
that's what happened,
it's
but
also the thing
that
of
was
like,
my headcanon for it.
oh, people that live in these like Arctic countries lived off like they live off whale meat and stuff, and it's like, oh, woolly mammoths, but woolly whales.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. It's creature. It was cool, but like they got knocked down a peg, and then we get this other flashback of her sister, and like they've obviously set off. Her brother had gone to try and kill Atreides. It got him killed.
Yes.
So obviously he got found out, failed, whatever he was trying to do. Then we get this: the sister has swooned her way in with some Atreides' son.
Yeah. So, but that was a slow burn, which I actually quite like. Like this idea, oh, she's just
Yeah.
given up on her family. She's just gone to, and then they say the name of Atreides, and I'm like, oh, she's double agent. She is still evil
Yes.
Harkonnen.
And then when she's like, I have something to tell you, I was like, oh shit, she's going to reveal she's Harkonnen. And I was like, he's going to fucking kill her. And then you get
No.
the sudden realization he's like, no, it's fine. You didn't get to pick your name, because he just thinks she's hid it because it's her name, not because she was going to kill the family.
Yeah,
then he
not
realizes
because I'm here for revenge. My
then he
name
realizes,
is whatever it is. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
yeah. Right, why is it so quiet? Goes aside, she's poisoned everyone. I'm guessing with that poison sac from whatever the creature was that.
I would assume so. That again, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of left up to assumption here, which isn't a bad thing inherently. But I feel like when they're struggling to communicate a lot of stuff, leaving stuff up to interpretation is going to create confusion with a lot of people.
But I did enjoy that whole like little storyline of she's meeting the family.
Yeah.
I'm guessing because my guess is that's like the whole Atreides family, like all the uncles and everything, and her plan was to basically take them all out. But then she lets one of them go, who obviously
is that Kieran or the father of Kieran, who's the god for the Emperor.
Well, no, because it was like the young boy, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you got to remember this was set in the past.
Oh, yeah, it was.
So that could be Kieran or Kieran's dad, even.
Well, thinking about ages. Yeah, it could be his dad, potentially. But then it's like, so how has he got the Atreides? The Atreides name's obviously gone back up a bit in, or maybe he's just like he is an Atreides and he's one of very few now, and he's just a swordsman.
I don't know.
For the Emperor.
And don't get me wrong, we don't need to know every little intricacy, but I do just find myself kind of after most episodes going, right.
But how are we here?
On? Yeah. And this thing, like, there are moments where I kind of manage to forget about the wider plot, and I just watch a scene. I'm like, oh, this is enjoyable.
Like
but then the scene ends and it goes into the next one. I'm like, wait, but what's happening? We've got like 4 stories across 3 different timelines, and I don't know where the music's coming from.
Yeah, and it's like the Benny Gesserit stuff is interesting because we're seeing her like playing different hands, and then she goes and visits the Harkonnen, who I
Yes.
presume that was her uncle from the flashbacks, who's now very
Yes.
old. Um, and that's obviously how then the Harkonnen are going to become powerful because she's like, fuck it, now we play into the family bloodline. Um, but then she's leaving the palace thinking the one born again, or she finds out that information of like the one reborn. She's like, oh, this is Devon, whatever his name was. Pyromaniac. Arsonist over there. But then I wonder if actually then we get the shit going on in the Bennett. This is what you're saying. Like, there's just so many fucking bits of stories everywhere, which I think is what I'm saying about the drip feeding. Like, we get little bits, and it's like, oh, okay, we've had the flashback. Now she's gone and visited her uncle, and it's like, oh, this is where the Harkonnen. She's still loyal to the Harkonnen family name, and she's going to try and get like, okay, this is her new plan. They've lost. The Emperor's no longer in our control. Fuck it. We pivot. We take control of this, and we run shit. Meanwhile, you've got back at the sisterhood, the whole young girl that had done the
Yeah, tried to
awakening.
commune with the ancestors and then
Yeah.
got killed by the spirit ghosts.
Well, ended up in a coma, we presume. And they're like, oh, we'll let her go. And it's like, okay, so she's finally accepted to let go.
But
And
no,
then
she hasn't.
then we reveal at the end of the episode, no, she's just taken her down to the secret locked chamber, and she's got her in some thing where there's an AI.
Yeah, that was the big thing to me. I'm like, whoa, they're big dangerous. We saw that. They wanted to kill a little boy for having a little pet lizard looking thing. That thing's having a whole last conversation with you.
Yeah, I was like, this seems
Unethical.
well, and it's also the same blue light that the little dragon thing had, and I'm like, okay, it's not in a robot, but it's still AI. So I'm like, and then she's also wants to keep this girl alive.
Yes.
Which then I'm like, oh shit, is she gonna be the one born again?
Maybe.
And it's not actually Devon, Spice Guy. I don't actually know if he's called Devon. It's something like that. Desmond.
This. I'm telling you, names are a big problem.
But yeah, it's that. Like, there's obviously that's another drip feed. It's like, okay, we're getting a bit. There's gonna this. I think the story is going to be focused on who is the one that is the savior to this prophecy, and it's going to
But
be
I
like,
assume the answer is actually Paul.
I don't know, because here's the thing with the Bene Gesserit, that whole like leader of them, and like that's all their story they've drummed up.
Yeah,
I wonder
but
if
Paul
they
does die and come back to life because of the poison, the
but I
water.
wonder if he's not the first. Like, they have it happen here, but then
Oh,
they lose them.
so
So
it's kind of
like,
like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They have this prophecy so that if someone survives it, they can go boink, you're it.
yeah, or like they're seeking out someone, so they always have one, but maybe one of these dies, and they're like, shit, now we need to put in the work to get another one that's born again. So they start doing
Got
this
to get back on
whole
that grind. It's only a 1 in 10,000 drop rate. Got to
like.
run some
But this is the
dungeons.
thing, like you say, we don't. The stories are all over the place. Names is the problem. Like, the thing about the films is it's very strongly on family names, and there's a few main characters that you need to remember their names. There's so many characters, and sometimes family name is important, but then it's not mentioned enough, so you don't lock it in your head. Which is, yeah, it all comes back to like, there's potential here, but it's feeling a bit messy at the moment, which is making it feel unsure.
I also think it's pretty clear that this wasn't Frank Herbert, and it was his son. I think you can tell the material they're adapting from isn't as good as the original Dune.
Yeah. It's tough because obviously like it is a very different perspective, like I've been saying, like we are focused on the closed in locations. I wonder if it'll feel better because there obviously got to be some lead up to them going to Spice Planet.
I don't think we're going to see Arrakis in this film. No, in this show.
There's so much mention of it though. I feel like
Yeah,
maybe
I
they'd
feel like that's kind of the
end on
point.
it. I don't know. Yeah,
Maybe,
true.
maybe the show season ends with them heading out to Arrakis. But I feel like the whole point is Arrakis is actually it's more of a value is that it exists, not that they're there.
Got you.
Kind of like owning a golf course, but you don't like golf. It's like, yeah, that's where I'm making my money, but I don't give a fuck. I hate golf.
I get you.